I had always wanted to be here.
Gotcha.
But I had never had any contact with them. Like I started wrestling, my first match was on my 16th birthday in 2000.
Wow.
And I never had any contact at all with WWE until I saw William Regal at a PWG show out in California. And that was, I think, August 31st of 20...
You're good with dates.
Yeah, 2013. You know what it is because... For years in my brain, like my schedule would go weekend to weekend, right?
Yeah.
So I would okay, I know that on that date I have a Ring of Honor show, and then the following weekend's PWG. So that's how I remember dates. Yeah. So it was August 31st, I think, of 2013, and I met. I knew like a week before that William Regal was coming to the PWG
scout?
show. I guess you know, it must have been why he was coming. You know, to scout. So in my head, I was like, this is probably the one chance I have. If I'm ever going to make it there.
Right.
Because at that point, they had already signed Sami Zayn. And, you know, I felt like things were kind of changing with the way, maybe the outlook that they had on who to sign and who to, you know what I mean? What their future was.
You don't have the classic pro wrestling body.
I definitely don't.
Neither does Sami.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be honest, right?
So I felt like that was a big, and, you know, even, you know, at that point, Daniel Bryan was very successful.
Yeah.
And he's another example of guys that technically aren't typical WWE superstars, but you know he was being very successful, so I felt like there was a change coming. So I figured if I have one shot, William Regal is going to be there, and this is it, you know. So I went in with that mindset, and I wrestled this guy called Johnny Gargano, another very talented wrestler, and we had a pretty good match. And you know, when I walked to the back, I had never met Regal before that day, and you know, I didn't want to crowd him or anything. All I said was, "Do you have any advice at all for me?" And he was very kind. He, you know, gave us what he thought of the match, and he was very positive, which was very refreshing because, you know, the style in PWG was pretty crash and burn, and, you know, go,
kind of like the indie
yeah, exactly.
For whatever that means, but a lot of...
But it is, yeah. And, you know, to have somebody like him who's been all, you know, the career he's had, to be open-minded enough to say, you know, you guys had the crowd going crazy, and in the end, that is what matters, you know. Because I've had, you know, wrestling veterans see matches and, you know, put what we do down just because it's not their cup of tea.
At Ring of Honor? Or?
Yeah, well, one specific incident in Ring of Honor, I'll name his name, I really don't care. Like Al Snow came to a show, and at that point he worked for Impact or TNA or whatever, and I think he still does. And he watched the whole show, but he was in the crowd. And afterwards I heard that amongst the fans that had paid their ticket to see the show, he put down every single match.
While he was in the crowd?
While he was in the crowd. The fans could hear him saying, they're not doing this right. Why are they doing that? This makes no sense, this and that. But every match had the crowd rocking. And it was a Ring of Honor show. And every fan left satisfied. But he couldn't open his mind up enough to see that, yeah, maybe it's not the way he would do it, but there is a way. You know what I mean?
It would be like going to a New Japan show or Arena Mexico and going, oh, that's not good, that's not good. You work to the crowd that is in the building, right?
Right, exactly.
So if you're at a PWG show, that's the style, and you know it. It's like ECW. Al, you know,
right?
You know, anything that Al did in ECW, I bet you made no sense if you come to WWE and watch.
Well,
but that's what entertains the crowd.
Yeah. So you know, this is it's not a knock on Al Snow or anything.
No, I get it.
It's
I
just,
get it.
It was a fact.
Sure,
that's what he did, and I'm sure he, you know, if somebody asked him about it, he would say, yeah, I agree. But William Regal was so positive about everything. It was really nice, you know, and William Regal was someone I always looked up to. So for him to be positive about my work right away was just a really cool thing. But then a couple days later, I got a message from somebody who worked at the Performance Center saying William Regal asked us to reach out to you about you coming in for a tryout. And I knew it. I was like, that's it. It's going to happen now. It's got to happen.
How did you feel about that, a tryout, even though you're Kevin Steen?
I had no problem with it.
Cool.
Because, you know why? Because I knew that, again, even though I'd shown enough to William Regal that he would be willing to, you know, try to get me in for a tryout, I'm still not the typical guy, you know, so I do have something to prove. And I was more than happy to do that. And then the tryout actually took a while to even get scheduled because this was, like I said, in August or September. There was an upcoming tryout in December, but Ring of Honor had their big show Final Battle that same weekend. And originally they were trying to get me in for that tryout, but that would have meant that I would have had to miss Ring of Honor's Final Battle, and I was under contract with them, so that got nixed. But Ring of Honor was kind enough to say, the next one, regardless of whether or not we have shows, you can go to that one. Because they knew that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'd worked there long enough, and they were gracious enough to let me go to the tryout, even though I was under contract. And I had my tryout in March. And
who did you work in the tryout, or what did you have to do?
So the tryout is very. It was hard. It's physically demanding, and very. They test your resilience and your heart. I think that's the main thing, is they want to see if you want it as bad as you say you do. So it was a 3-day tryout. We actually ended up. I say we because there's a couple of Ring of Honor guys at that same tryout. We only ended up doing 2 days because Ring of Honor kind of got into a bit of an agreement with WWE where they did have a show that weekend, but WWE let us go to the show. So the last day we didn't do, but the last day was promos and stuff like that. So we got through the part, like the physical part of it.
A lot of drills and stuff?
A lot of drills. A lot of drills in the ring, a lot of drills, like even working out in the gym with the trainer here. His nickname's Witch. I, shockingly enough, had never really been in the gym. I mean, I had been in the gym, but I didn't work out regularly. And, he was doing, these exercises like clean and press and just these exercises that I've never seen before. And in my head, I was like, I will never be able to do that. But I did. I managed.
So you're not a gym guy because you're a big dude. I mean, you got some meat on you, but you got big arms and big shoulders. And
I mean, I'm not I've worked out for the last 15 years, but not 5 times a week religiously.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess I never looked into it enough to know really what I'm doing. I know that if I lift these heavy things, eventually muscles will appear. So I would kind of do that, But I didn't have I don't have a technique to it. I don't have a science to it. I never had a real, I guess all it comes down to is I never really applied myself, which, that a lot of people could say what they want about that. So when I got here and I saw him, this is what you guys are going to do. And he had this little circuit, And it was the first thing in the morning of the second day. So we went through the entire in-ring training on the first day. And we were so sore and just beat up. And not from they weren't making us bump left and right here. It was just push-ups, sit-ups, squats, rolls, all this stuff.
Lots of repetitions.
Yeah. And it was for hours. Because, again, they're just trying to see if you want it as bad as you do, as you say you do. And thankfully, I had been to one of my buddies back home has a pretty good wrestling camp, a training school. His name's Drew Onyx, and he runs the Torture Chamber, is what he calls it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's back in Montreal. And Drew, I mean, I'm glad I get to talk about it here. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have gotten through the physical part of this tryout. Because all I did was I went there for a month before the tryout. And I did the exact same thing he made his trainees do. I would do rolls. I would do very basic training, but a lot of it was conditioning and the same kind of stuff that they did at the tryout because he had been he had done a tryout before.
Did Finn Balor? I think he mentioned him on the show too.
Yeah, he might have because they wrestled in Ireland together and stuff like that.
I think
they
he
met
mentioned
before.
him.
Yeah, Drew's from Montreal, and
Gotcha.
he's been around a little bit. So. I commend Drew for helping me because if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have made it through the physical part of it. That was probably the best thing I did was go to the torture chamber and, just go through the exact same training that he would put his trainees through because his training is all about getting them ready for when they go outside, whether it's, he's done New Japan training camps, so he implements parts of what they do in their training camp, so that if anybody from his school ever goes there, they kind of know how to handle themselves. And he's done the WWE tryout, so he uses that as well. So when I got here, I was pretty prepared, and it helped me obviously get through the grueling physical training. And it wasn't easy by any means, but I got through it. I didn't quit, which I think is a big part of it. I think a lot of people expected me to quit, and I didn't. And then
why do you say that? Because a little bit of a prejudice because you're a big guy?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not, I've got a bit of stomach going, and I'm not ripped. I'm not, I don't look like I'd be a cardio machine. But I got through everything. And
now was Bill DeMott here? Because Bill's built a lot like you. He's a little bit bigger in the arms, but he's got the same kind of body shape. So I bet you when he sees a guy like you and you're doing all this stuff, he's probably not surprised.
I don't know if he was surprised, but Bill. A lot has been said about Bill and his training and this and that, but Bill wasn't easy on anybody, especially during tryouts. But I don't think he was harder on anyone either. You know what I mean? He was pretty even across the board. He made sure that to weed out the people that didn't really want to be here. And I personally, at that tryout camp and throughout his time here, I never saw him, be
abusive.
Not abusive. I definitely never saw him be abusive, but I never saw him be harder on someone than others. You know what I mean? He was pretty even across the board.
He's giving everyone a free shot to prove themselves.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think he did have, throughout the years, maybe he did start, having opinions about people here that, you know what I mean? You can't help but form opinions. And I don't know if that ever hindered his work here, but as far as I'm concerned, from the tryout to when I came here and I signed to the time he left, he was always pretty straightforward with me, and he didn't give me any, like, you would think maybe because, I'm a bigger guy, he's a bigger guy, maybe he'll, like, take it easy. He definitely did not do that,
no free pass.
No. And then, so he ran the camp, like, Matt Bloom was there as well, and I remember actually Alex Wright was also here for it. Yeah. I guess he was like
in the camp?
No, he was just like a guest trainer that week. Okay. Yeah. It was really funny too because I don't know why, but like the last person I expected to see here was maybe Alex Wright, and I was like in the ring doing sit-ups and push-ups, and I'm trying to just not die. And for some reason, he thought that I wasn't breathing right, and all he would tell me is, breathe, Kevin, breathe, in his accent. It was really hard to concentrate. Anyway, so that made the tryout pretty neat. So on the second day of the tryout, I had a match with, I believe his name is Zane Dawson. He's another bigger guy from the Indies that was here for the tryout. And we had the match, and then they asked me to cut a promo on the spot. I did. And I think once I finished the promo, I think I knew I was in.